Hello, welcome to Mike's Mets podcast. I'm your host, Mike Pashota, and happy Friday to you. We've seen the New York Mets experience something of a reversal of fortunes in the last few games. They've won 4 of their last 6, including taking 2 out of 3 from the Seattle Mariners, which was a very nice series for everyone involved. And it's been something of a boon from the players that you would not expect. It's been huge games for Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor. We've kind of expected that. Those are the Mets stars. The Mets are paying those guys, or in some cases not paying them, Pete Alonso, and they need to, perform like they should be. And there's really nothing to be said about that other than these are what the stars should be doing. It's been what the group that's had a little bit more of attention placed on them, some good, some bad, a lot of pressure. It's been the baby Mets, and the baby Mets are enjoying something of a boon the last 5 games. I'm going to call this what have you done for me lately, and we're going to say over the last 6 games, and in these cases the last 5 games for each of these players for the New York Mets. And for anyone who isn't aware, the baby Mets include catcher Francisco Alvarez, third baseman Brett Beatty. I don't know what Vientos' position is. I guess like everything, professional DH. Herc Vientos, and Ronnie Mauricio, the recently called up infielder who has been seeing kind of time in a lot of different places. He's going to be seeing most of his time at second base, though, it seems. Ronnie Mauricio. And I'm also going to include even though he's not technically a member of the baby Mets, meaning the young, talented prospects that came up through the Mets farm system whole seemingly at the same time, I'm also going to include Kodai Senga. And while Kodai is not a baby by any chance, he's 30 years old. He has been the standout of the Mets rookie class. He's been one of the best pitchers in the second half of the season in the National League. And what he's done for this team in a situation where he had to step up and become sort of the de facto ace of the staff. It's incredibly impressive to do it in New York, where there's a lot of pressure on you. Certainly, there's a lot of people who are going to be wishing, for you to not succeed. To see what he's done, and we'll go into what he's done over the last 5 games, his last 5 starts. It's been nothing short of fantastic. I've been incredibly impressed by Kodai Senga in the second half of the season, and particularly in the last few games. So let's talk about Francisco Alvarez first. And Alvarez, it's been tough a year. We've seen him kind of regress at different stages. He had a horrendous August, and it's difficult to see where exactly the issues kind of started with Alvarez, because he had incredible stretches during the season where he looked amazing. In May, at one point in May, he was batting like 270. I was like, wow, he was batting like 270 at some point. It's actually amazing. So he had a great May and a great July, and there was like some serious talk about like if he was like an all-star at different stages of the season. Ultimately did not make the All-Star team, and then had an August to forget. Really, it was just one of those months that you're like, okay, so yeah, as a reminder, he is a rookie. He's very young. He's going to have his tough months, and he had a epically bad month in August. He batted 139 for the month at a 456 OPS. Had exactly 1 home run and 5 RBIs. And for a guy who everyone's expecting him to be the power hitter, the guy who's supposed to be hitting 30 home runs a season, he probably should have hit 30 home runs a season much earlier. This had he not gone this terrible slump. It's pretty surprising to see that kind of like power outage. It was a tough thing to watch. He kind of just gritted his teeth through it. And what we've seen over his last 5 games has been pretty encouraging, I'll say. I've been pleasantly surprised by what Alvarez has done over his last 5 games, or 5 appearances. So he made a pinch hit appearance on September 2nd, like in that game that they lost against the Seattle Mariners. But in his Last 4 starts, he's looked significantly better. I've been encouraged by what I've seen from Alvarez. So excluding his 0-for-3 game against Texas and that win, he would go 1-for-4 against Seattle in Game 1 against Seattle, and then 1-for-4 again in the Game 3 against Seattle, but then exploded against the Washington Nationals. Now, it's the Washington Nationals. What are you going to do? Of course, you're going to do well against them. He would go 2-for-3, grabs a double and his first home run in, how long was it? It was, prior to that, his last home run had been August 1st. This is September 5th we're talking about, so more than a month. So he had a home run, 3 RBIs. It was a great game for Alvarez, one that he could kind of lean on and say, okay, like this is something to kind of grow on. And I'm gonna bet on that Alvarez can kind of take that big game that he had against the Nationals and sort of parlay it into more success down the stretch. Getting through the dog days of August is always tough, particularly for rookies. You're in a situation that you've never been in before. Your body's starting to get tired, even as a young kid like he is. It's going to happen for really everybody, and I feel like he was definitely feeling all of those games played, all the innings at that point, and it's tough being a catcher and also being a rookie. You're being expected to do a very physically demanding position, and it kind of wears on you after a while, as might be odds. He hated it, but he... Francisco Alvarez, he has the ability. We all know this. There's a reason why he was one of the biggest prospects in baseball over the last couple of years, and it's been a good thing to see with Alvarez if he can kind of sort of start to roll with it and get back into where he needs to be, which is he needs to be the future star of this team. There's a lot riding on him, and in questions where it's not really clear which homegrown guys are going to be staying with this team for much longer, it's imperative that Francisco Alvarez starts to kind of find his footing. I think he's shown at different stages during the season, has the ability to kind of take over, and I think he will take over over September. I think this is going to be sort of a showcase month for him where he can kind of shake off that tough August and really start to show what kind of player he is. So moving on, we have Brett Baty, and Brett Baty was sent down earlier this year. He was in his own tough August where he was 0 for the month before they finally sent him down. And Baty's had a bad year. Let's say that. I've talked ad nauseum about what Baty has done poorly this year, and I'm not going to belabor any listeners about what I've already said before. So just to kind of say the point, he has not played like we know Brett Baty can play. We've seen all his success in AAA. We've seen him. After they sent him down, all of a sudden sort of regain his home run stroke since he's been back up since the beginning of September. It's been, again, just the singles for Brett Baty, and he kind of progresses when he gets back up here. And I will put the blame less on Brett Baty, more on the fact that this coaching staff seems to be unable to sort of break through to him and sort of get him where he needs to be, because it seems somewhat obvious what his issue is, yet they somehow are not able to correct it. Over his last 5 games, he's hit safely in 4 of his 5 games, all 4 starts. Only issue is that he's not really doing anything in terms of helping the team. He did grab a couple of RBIs. That was nice to see in the first game against Washington that they won 11-5. But Brett Baty needs to sort of locate where his center should be and start to elevate his game, because what we've seen so far is not really cutting it. He has a negative WAR on the year, and he's overall looked like he's overmatched is one word. He's hitting the ball. He's just not really doing anything with it. I think if he can sort of fix whatever is wrong with his stroke, then we can get to where Bray should be playing more. But the defense has been average at best, and he's made some crucial errors, and we don't really know where we're going to stand with Baty. If third base is really the position for him to stay at, or did they move him to a corner outfield spot at some point? A lot of questions about Brett Baty's long-term future with this team, and the early returns on Brett Baty, they have not been super positive. There have been signs where he's looked sharper. I would like to see if he can kind of get out of his own head in this case. But again, he is very young. Again, this is his rookie year. He played last year, but this is something to watch where you have a guy who's going to have a lot of pressure put on him to improve on what he's done, because if he goes into the offseason and comes into 2024 and he's doing the same thing, then the Mets have to kind of say, okay, so is he just not coachable? Is he incapable of playing at the major league level? What's going on exactly? Because what we've seen so far early on has not been great. I'm happy to see that he's hit safely in his last 4 starts, but you could be doing a lot more, I think, preparing. Mark Vientos has been one of the stranger situations. Vientos is a guy, this is why I said, like, professional DH. I don't really know where exactly Vientos fits in this team, other than possibly DH, but that's just sort of one situation. He's obviously played very well in the minor leagues, and was to be expected. It's the minor leagues. You can do really great in AAA. It's a matter of how well you do at the major league level. Mark Vientos has been in a strange stretch. They called him back up after sending him down in June of this year, and he's just been up and down basically his entire career. They called him back up in July. He's been with the team, though, honestly, it's not really surprising if you forgot he was on the team, because he started, and when he started, he didn't do that much, and then Buck Showalter would sit him down, and then there was sort of this start and stop mentality with Vientos. He basically started all of August, and the results were not great. He didn't really look still comfortable to play. He still seemingly had not figured out what he'd done. His last 5 games, though, it's been sort of a whirlwind. Everyone's like, wait, is Mark Vientos actually really good? So the reason why is that he's batting .438 over his last 5 games. So in 16 at bats, he has 7 hits and 16 at bats, a triple, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs. He has a 1464 OPS. I mean, he's just consistently getting on base and consistently destroying the ball. He's definitely taking advantage of some poor pitching on the case of the Texas Rangers, the Seattle Mariners, and the Washington Nationals. But he has sort of flipped the switch these last 5 games. It's actually been very encouraging to see. It's one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, Mark Vientos can hit. Like, there is talent. He's a big guy. He's got a lot of power. There's a lot of talent there, I think. It's just a matter of being consistent, which has been sort of the issue with Vientos, and why it's not really clear where Vientos' long-term future sort of stands with this team. If he's going to be a part of the team in 2024, it's going to be at DH. It's unlikely that they're going to find him. You're going to find him starting in like left field, because it's probably not going to happen. You don't really throw a defensive minus like Vientos into left field. So if he's going to be starting, it's going to be a DH, and I don't really know where exactly he does stand in the terms of the Mets' long-term future. He was always kind of like the 4th man of that baby Mets crew, where you were like, okay, like, is this guy going to make the team? Were they going to trade him? Is he trade bait? There's a lot of questions about Vientos, and they may be sort of holding him to kind of show off. He is young. There's a lot to say. Like, he could be a trade. Trade throw-in. He's not a prospect that will engage a lot of people's interest, because he has a terrible strikeout rate for his career in the minor leagues and the major leagues. So it's hard to say where exactly Mark Vientos is going to stick with this team. I would say that if he continues to hit like he has over the last 5 games, and he makes September his showcase month, like Alvarez should be making it, this is going to be a good sign for Vientos, where you can sort of take that month and be like, okay, like, look what I did over this course of this month. Imagine what I can do over the full season. I sort of hit my stride. Now I know what I'm doing. Now I know what I can be. It's an important thing. I don't know if that is actually Vientos' trajectory in terms of his career. We'll see how the remainder of September goes, but I think there's a chance that he could be an impressive player. And if he has these kind of torrid stretches where he's just getting on base, getting hits, hitting home runs, it's definitely something that the Mets lineup could use and could definitely use a little bit more consistent play from their DH spot. Finally, Ronnie Mauricio, who was made his big league debut at the beginning of this month, has one of the hottest stretches for a Mets prospect in their first 5 games, I think, in the entire history of the Mets franchise. He has been on an absolute tear since they called him up. And Mauricio was doing a great job in AAA. There was signs that he has improved his strikeout rate, which would have been probably the biggest concern about the Mets, was the fact that he just didn't want to get on base and wasn't doing a lot of walking and was striking out a lot. And there was, he had power, but was the strikeout rate going to kind of harm him in his overall development? Since he's been called up, he has been unbelievable. He has started all 5 games he's appeared in, and he has hit safely in all 5, including 2 hits in 3 of those 5 games. He had a double in his in his debut game, and the double was an insane hit. It was the hardest base hit by a Met all season long. There's no doubt he can hit fastballs. It's a matter of how he's going to do against off-speed pitches. Thus far, he's acquitted himself pretty well, and we are seeing him for the seasons thus far. He's batting .421. He has an .895 OPS. We haven't seen any home runs from him. It's just been a lot of singles and the one double, but he's definitely doing something. He's making contact and more importantly, getting that ball through the infield and into the outfield. He's definitely doing a lot to help this team, and has been an important production piece. There's no doubt when a guy's getting on base and getting base hits, it's definitely going to sort of encourage your team to sort of produce behind you, and he's done an exceptional job thus far. It's a matter of how the remainder of the month goes, but it seems like they're going to be using Mauricio as the team's second baseman. They're going to move McNeil more primarily into a corner outfield spot, maybe in right field or left field, and if that's the route they want to go. Mauricio's got to play good defense. He is a big guy. There's a lot of question of if he can actually play second base. Not really clear. It might be he is more destined for the outfield. That's what they're trying to figure out right now, how the team shakes out with him. And is Ronnie Mauricio a guy who they're going to be planning around for their future? There's, like Mark Vientos, it's not really clear as much as it was with Brett Beatty and Francisco Alvarez where exactly he fits in this team. And if you have Vientos as the DH spot, where does Mauricio fit in? Is he more of a corner outfielder, or is he an infielder? And if he's an infielder, can he actually play infield defense at a reasonable rate? I don't really know. It's hard to say right now with Ronnie Mauricio. What I've been enjoying, however, these last 5 games. I've felt like he's kind of really been the boons to the Mets offense that they've really needed. They need that guy who's producing, and he's definitely producing. Not enough power yet, but I think that will come, and he's definitely shown during his time in the minor leagues that he has the power, and he can be a guy who can hit maybe 15, 20 home runs a season. So encouraging signs to see, definitely. And finally, we're going to talk about Kodai Senga and how important he has been for the Mets. And when you trade away your 2 aces, and I'm going to put aces in quotes because Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer did not really pitch like aces. They pitched like good pitchers, but it's not really what you're paying them for. Kodai Senga had a tough first half. There were definitely situations where you're like, is this guy going to be able to be at all effective for them? He definitely hurt them early in the year. The fact that he could not really seem to go past 5 innings. He was throwing 100 pitches. He was walking a lot of guys. There was a lot of problems with his control. He has seemingly turned a corner, however, in the second half of the season. He seemed to focus more on getting putting the ball in play, then trying to strike everyone out in August, he saw his strikeout rate dip significantly. He still struck out 9.8 batters per game in August, but he still he has really made an incredible change up in terms of his what he was doing on the mound. All of a sudden, he was going deeper into games, and in the second half of the season, it's been really something to watch. I've been really impressed by the fact that he has been not just a guy who can strike out 12 guys like he did in his last start. He can also be that guy who is going deeper into the games and is being a guy who is not going to put as much exertion on a less talented, overworked bullpen like the Mets bullpen has been all year. He has, except for one start in the second half of the season, which was back in July 21st, he has gone at least 6 innings in every one of those starts. Incredibly important for this team, and they've really leaned on him, again, in the absence of Verlander and Scherzer, after both guys were traded. The next guy up was Senga, and there was, can Senga actually start to improve and perform like the pitcher that they think he can? They spent a lot of money on a guy who had never pitched in the United States before, had never pitched out of Japan, and had a lot of success in Japan, obviously, but there was a lot of guys who've had success in Japan who've never been able to parlay it over into the U.S. and when you play in the major leagues. And there was obviously going to be a lot of growing pains with him. I definitely said on more than one occasion that I expect him, as he becomes more and more familiar with playing at the major league level and playing at this system and using these baseballs and getting used to these rules and this pitch clock, as he got more used to it, he was going to improve. I've been incredibly impressed by the way he has adapted, and he is, in the moment, having an amazing year. He's not going to win Rookie of the Year, unfortunately, even though he has pitched like a Rookie of the Year, for sure. And probably in weaker years, he might have gotten away with it. It's going to be Corbin Carroll for the Arizona Diamondbacks this year, I'm pretty sure. But Kota Senga has definitely thrown his name into the hat. I think there's a lot of people who have been like, oh yeah, Kota Senga, really good pitcher. And he's going to be the guy who's going to be expected to be the ace of the Mets staff in 2024, unless they bring in someone else. But there's a lot of questions about that Mets pitching staff. I have no questions about Kota Senga right at this point. He has really stepped up and been the pitcher that they need him to be. He has thankfully stayed healthy, knock on wood, and we'll hope that he continues to stay healthy and pitch well. It's definitely hard to acclimate to pitching at this schedule. He has done it all, and to do it all at 30 years old in your rookie year in New York City, it's an amazing accomplishment. He's done a great job, and if he can muster out another good few starts over the course of September, it'll be a big way in terms of making the Mets look respectable at the end of the year. This crew, excluding Senga, has been something of it's a really different approach for the Mets organizationally. They don't usually call up a lot of young players at the same time like this, unless they're pitchers. Generally, that's been the Mets' MO for their entire franchise history. It's usually a franchise that's been about the pitchers. They are a pitching organization first, hitters second. And while they've had some great prospects come up close to each other, David Wright and Jose Reyes come to mind, it's usually been more of, we're going to call up Matt Harvey and Zach Wheeler and Noah Syndergaard and Jacob deGrom and Steven Matz all at the same time. Or we're going to call up, let's go back to the 90s, and we're going to call up Paul Wilson and Bill Pulsifer and Jason Isringhausen all at the same time. Or let's go back to the 80s. We're going to call up Dwight Gooden and Ron Darling, Walt Terrell, and Sid Fernandez all at the same time. That is generally their MO. This is a really different approach when you have all these 4 guys who all came up, who were all, I think with the exception of Vientos, all top 100 prospects, and at one time or other. And to have these 4 kids kind of thrown into the mix, and now Buck Showalter has started to play those guys on a more consistent basis, and seeing a little bit more playing time for them because they're pretty much out of it. It's been encouraging to see if they can actually play at this level going forward. I'm interested to see which guys stay, which guys leave. I don't know if the Mets are going to trade off Maybe Mauricio, maybe they'll trade off Vientos, be able to trade off Beatty, who knows. The only guy I'm totally sure about is Francisco Alvarez, but it's been an interesting time to see. The Baby Mets have definitely lived up to their name. They are young kids who all are playing hard. I'll say that for them. Even if they're not succeeding, they are playing hard. They really are trying their best to improve, and it's a good crew to sort of develop along with your stars, Nimmo and Lindor and Alonso and McNeil, even though he's not played like a star. These are encouraging signs. I would like to see that they all stay together, and I think it's always better for homegrown players to stick in their organization. However, if they have an opportunity to trade one or two or maybe three of them for someone who can really impact the franchise at a different level, I'm all for it. However, that being said, the Mets have been a pleasant experience for my eyes after what has been a horrendous season, a really disappointing season. It's been nice to see the youth of this team start to kind of capture a little bit more of that magic and start to really sort of rediscover what it is to be a New York Met.
Thank you for listening to Mike's Mets podcast. Please be sure to follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Finally, please also follow the podcast Twitter, which is Mike's Mets Pod, all one word. Appreciate your time and have a wonderful rest of your day or evening. Let's go, Mets.